around and animated, so this might be a little different for me. But I'm excited to talk about this. Before I was the athletic director and baseball coach here, I was a college baseball coach for 11 years. I was a recruiting coordinator at the Division III level and 10 years at the Division I. I was a bird dog scout. I can't tell people that because you were a professional scout. So I was like a peon scout with the Marlins for a couple years too. Now, Sherrod's a good friend of mine. We worked together at the University of Notre Dame as baseball coaches together. Sherrod went on to work at North Carolina State, UIC, Indiana State, and worked in the NCAA. He was a professional scout, was a basketball and a baseball player at Purdue, and we were both parents of kids that went on to play in college sports. So I don't want to say we're experts, but we have gone through the process, and the landscape has changed. There's a lot of things that are the same that we're going to talk about, but Sherrod's here to talk a little bit more about the landscape because there's transfer portal, name, image, and likeness, roster limits. Should you be a walkout, should you not? There's a lot of different things to take into consideration, and a couple of things that have changed that I think with social media, the business side of sports, there's a panic sometimes for kids as they go through the high school as one of the freshmen or sophomores, because 5-10 years ago you saw 8th graders committing to schools, you saw freshmen. It's still happening a little bit, but really it's not, because right now you've got to be good enough to make the roster and play, usually as a freshman, correct? So roster spots, so it's kind of going back to when we were growing up, where you got to be good enough to play when you're a junior or senior, because that's what it's going to take to be a freshman to be able to play. This isn't baseball, this is most sports right now, because of roster limits. They've cut it down because of name, image, and likeness and different things. But before we get to that, there's a few things, and as we go through this, talking about the process, which I think is important for mom and dad to talk to kids all the way through this process. Whether your son or daughter is a freshman, sophomore, or junior, I think there's a process every single year that's a little bit different. Now, the first thing that I think is important is for you to ask your son or daughter, do you want to play in college? Whether it's lacrosse, basketball, baseball, softball, track, doesn't matter. You need to ask, do you want to play in college? What usually happens when you do, they say yes. But then when you start throwing out different schools, like, okay, what if LSU recruits you? Yes. Illinois? Yes. North Central College? Benedictine? College you pays? No. And the only reason I bring that up is that saying you want to play in college, that's a very broad statement. Okay? You need to go through, there's different levels, like Division I, 2, 3, there's NEI, there's junior college, which is 2-year schools. Division I and 2 give scholarships. Division III usually gives grants. That's usually financial aid or merit-based. So it's kind of going through that process of asking, do you want to play in college? The second part to that is, which I'm going to have you chime in a little bit on this too, is knowing what it takes, not just being a great athlete in high school, but what the commitment level is when they go to college. And I think that's the biggest thing that most kids don't understand, is when they go to, whether it's Division I, whether it's Division II, Division III, it's a job, and it's a little bit more of a business at the college level than it is in high school. At high school, as much as travel and club is competitive, and high school is competitive, you know, you still have those coaches and parents there, okay, supporting. When you get to college, there's a little bit of support that way, but it's a little bit more of the business side. But the biggest thing is the time factor. There's a lot of time to be an athlete in college. So what I think is important for them to understand is, do they want to put that time in? Mom and dad, coaches, we see an athlete and we're like, wow, that kid can play in college. That kid's phenomenal. But that doesn't always mean that they have the work ethic, it doesn't mean they're lazy, or the desire to play in college. And I think that's the biggest thing that's important to ask. Okay, so I'm going to have to chime in, and you've seen it at a bunch of different levels, the time commitment from schools.
No, thanks, Scott. I appreciate it. Just wanted to clarify, I'm the deputy AD at UIC, and I was the athletic director at Indiana State for 7 years, so I just want to make sure I'm not the AD at UIC. But in regard to what you're talking about, Scott, as far as the commitment level, it's hugely important, more so now because there's going to be a revenue share component of that. And that revenue share component gives athletes not only scholarships, but gets them even more money. And a part of that revenue share portion also means that there's going to be possible roster limits. So that means that you have to go prepared and ready to compete. The idea of walking on and gradually kind of getting in is going to be going away. The thing I'll say, Scott, I don't want to go too far in it. Right now, we don't know what we don't know about the whole revenue share portion. Judge Milken at this time, she's the federal court judge in DC, California. She's sent the proposal back to the NCAA to say that there needs to be something in there that allows current student athletes that are on teams that are walk-ons, and then prospects, meaning people going to 25, a chance to be grandfathered in to the teams. As it is now, if you opt in, those spots are no longer available, and so those kids have been told they have to go other places. So right now, that is undetermined. Hopefully within the next 2 to 3 weeks, Judge Wilkin will officially say that this whole revenue share is complete, but there'll have to be some kind of component on the roster limit. I hope I get ahead of myself, Scott. But I just think it's important to be able to say it, because to Scott's point, now the commitment level at the Division I level is hugely important. You're getting paid for scholarship and you're getting additional dollars because of NIL. And there's going to be accountability. And so when you're required to work out in the summertime, X amount of hours a week, in the fall, in the winter, that's required. And you still have to get your studies. So I guess what Scott's saying is that, it's fun and games, but it's not fun and games. You become basically, for lack of a better word, employees, which means you have a job to do. And that job is to win championships and to be successful. And so that whole adage about the student athlete and, they're working hard in school, that's true. But because of this revenue share that athletes are reserving, you're now becoming kind of employees, which means that you have to bear down and get after it. There's a lot of things on the line.
So with that said, there's Division I, which Gerard's talking about, whether it's Illinois, whether it's Northern Illinois, Illinois State, there's kind of different levels of Division I. There's Division II that gives scholarships, Division III. There's different opportunities for kids. It doesn't matter what sport right now. Experience, is probably the main thing that people want. And high school kids don't have a lot of experience. So that doesn't mean that you're not talented enough to play at the highest level. But what teams are looking for, or schools are looking for, is experience. So kids now, and I can't believe I'm actually saying this, the kids now are going to Division III schools and playing for a year, getting experience, and going to the transfer portal, and then getting big scholarships at Division I schools. The transfer portal is being looked at differently, and it's happening in every sport right now. Now, I'm going to go back a little bit what parents you can do right now by asking those questions, going back and just talking to your kids, because not as freshmen, but maybe sophomores and juniors, if you're asking your child to maybe doing a little extra in the weight room, a little bit extra shooting baskets, maybe going to the pool a little bit more, just doing some extra, some of those things, if they're kind of griping at you, you can be, hey, this is kind of the expectation that you're going to be, you need to go to practice, but do extra when you go to college. A lot of times you go to college, you report, you have about 2 or 3 weeks that you do individuals, or 4 or 5 on-ones, depending on what your sport is. During that time, you're weightlifting, you're supposed to be going to class. You'll have 2 months of maybe a fall practice, unless your season is in the fall. And then you're still meeting with the strength coach for these study tables. So your day at a Division I, and a lot of times Division II, is weightlifting in the morning, go to class, go to lunch, doing extra work, going to practice, maybe go to the weight room again, study hall, and then try to have a little social work and do homework. Now, I'm not trying to sit here and say that college athletics is not fun. It's phenomenal. We both had a great time as players ourselves, but also had a good time coaching. But it is a lot of work. It cuts down a little bit at the Division III level of time. Division II, a little bit. If you go to a junior college, there's no time requirements that, at least at Division I level, they're like, hey, it's 30 hours, 40 hours a week. That's all you can do. Junior college might go all day long to make sure that they get kid to the next level. Now, the reason why I'm again saying have those conversations with your kid, every year maybe you still want to try to do this. You still want to try to do this because the desire needs to be there. They gotta love being a part of the team. They gotta love being a part of the school because they'll have success then. If it's a grind for them and it's a job to get back to the field or the court or the pool, it might be tough, not because they're not good enough as an athlete to play, but the time commitment might be too much, and that's okay. Because we want them all to have great success in college, whether they're an athlete or not. Now, I'm going to go back to this. Those are asking the questions. Then there's understanding the process. Okay, I have a thing called QuestFit. So it's asking the question, understand the process, evaluate my athlete, start the recruiting process, train for now and for the future, find the right fit, include everyone in the process, and tools for the process. So I'm going to go understand the process. Each sport's different. Okay, if it's track or it's swimming, it's by time, or golf, where it's like you kind of know the number you need to shoot for, or the times. You know, sometimes other sports, it's an evaluation, whether how good you are now and how good somebody might think you are 2 or 3 years from now. The one thing I will say, understanding the process is that you need to find people that are going to give you the honest opinion of where your kid is today. Because a lot of times now, like Shore talks about, you need to be ready to play as a freshman, more so than I would have said 5 years ago. So understanding where you are as a freshman, as a sophomore, you might not be ready to play at LSU, but you might be in 3 or 4 years. So getting an honest evaluation of where you're at, so then you can make goals to try to get there, or maybe you're not there, so you can make the right choice in school. So, and you see that with high school kids in going to college. How important is it to be ready to play as a freshman or sophomore today?
Well, nowadays with the portal, getting paid is extremely important because you have to have a return on your investment as soon as possible. That's why a lot of these schools are recruiting kids that are already playing college and are already proving themselves. But I think going back to your point, the thing I've noticed more than anything for freshmen is that they don't know the time commitment. They are so tired after being in school for less than, a semester. They're exhausted, more mentally than physically, because it's so taxing. You got social, you have classes, you have all these expectations of you. So that's what Scott's talking about. He can talk about the time the coach wants you to do your own work, go in the gym, go in the cages, and get your own work done. So I think it's important to keep that in mind that, it's a lot. The playing is just a small part of it. It's a mentally tough to be able to endure that first year. So as you parents are with your kids now, they need to know that they're doing all this for the right reason. Understand they want to play at the next level. There is a level of commitment that's going to require a lot of commitment from them.
So, evaluate my athlete and instructor recruiting process. Here's some suggestions that I would do right now. If the first question is, do you want to play college athletics? And they say yes, is that I would sit them down and I would create a plan A, a plan B, and a plan C. And if they're freshmen or sophomores, the plan A could be 40 schools. Okay, the plan B could be 20 schools, the plan C is shorter. Now, here's what I like to do with families. When you get an honest evaluation of where your son or your daughter is in whatever sport they're at, okay, you take that, and it's not only athletically, you got Mr. Open over here that you can get academically too. Because when they go to college, there's 2 things that you're gonna be able to get in because you're an athlete, and there's some schools that you may or may not get into for your academic reasons too. So it's kind of a 2-pronged goal system as we try to go through the process. Now, I want kids to dream big. I do. So when I put 8 schools down, where do you want to go? I want to go to LSU, I want to go to Texas, I want to go to Illinois. You have to do that. But then you need to find out what it takes to play at those schools. Okay, you need to ask some honest people, whether it's your high school, your travel coach, maybe somebody you train with. You need to get an honest evaluation, okay, of what it takes to play at those schools, and then your son or daughter, an honest evaluation of where they're at today. Most freshmen are not going to get the honest evaluation saying, yes, you can play at Illinois today as a freshman or sophomore. But they can tell you whether you need to be faster, stronger, quicker, faster in the pool, techniques. And where I put B schools is kind of where you're at today. Okay? Again, finding out that level of whether it is a Division III school, whether it's a junior college Division II, and you put that in the B category. C, and this is what I find with most Benet students and kids in the area, where would your dream school be if you couldn't play a sport? And I think it's important to put that at C. Okay? Because as they get older, okay, A schools can be 50, now I'm going to make this, and every year they get older, they get better, or maybe they don't reach that potential of where they need to go. Okay? But their grades go up, they go down, they stay put, and all of a sudden it funnels into, your 48 schools turn into 6, because you kind of know where you are. The thing that I love, and I say to people, is knowing sooner so you can have an honest evaluation can make people not be disappointed and pleasantly surprised. What I see with most high school people is they don't ask questions until their junior or senior year. Hope that big school happens. If it doesn't, and they get disappointed in the process. Now, I'll give you a quick story. My uncle coached Texas A&M in baseball. I always wanted to play at Texas A&M. Okay, I got an honest evaluation from a couple coaches. I went to Texas A&M, I went to a camp, and I got an honest evaluation that I was not good enough as a sophomore and junior to play. So I went and figured out where I was. I trained hard, and worked all the way through. And the summer before my senior year, I went to the Texas A&M camp hoping that I got good enough to go play baseball at Texas A&M. So I got the head coach, Mark Johnson, that came up and talked to me, and I don't care what sport this is, this can relate to anything. And he looked at me and he said, Scott, sorry, but if you came here, you probably get cut. I'm like, oh. He goes, you could go to junior college, which is, there's a couple good ones down the street, so we can keep an eye on you. And you might be good enough as a junior if you want to go the junior college route. But that's still a maybe, but right now I would say you're not going to crush me. But when I went home, I had 5 other smaller Division I schools, a couple Division II and Division III schools that recruited me. I ended up going to Morehead State, which was a good experience. Now, if I didn't train to go play at Texas A&M, Morehead State would never happen, or Ball State, or Northern Illinois. So the reason I'm saying that is that you might have these kids reach for the stars, but as they get older, they kind of figure out where they fit. Because you want to play, and nowadays they need to play because of roster limits. So I think that's important to understand that in getting an honest evaluation so you can make these goals is important too. Now, there's a lot of businesses out there that have our kids going to showcases and different things they can go to where, I don't care what sport it is, it's important to maybe showcase yourself out there, but having a coach tell you, you know what, you're too slow right now, so you need to work on getting faster. What happens is most people spend money on showcasing themselves and not working on the skills they need to get better. So Charlotte, if you don't mind talking about that, of kind of spending the money in the right way,
sometimes you pay people to say what you want to hear. And I think what Scott's talking about, in honest opinion, is someone that is going to be objective and tell you the truth. We can put money into all these physical people to get us go harder, run faster, jump higher, sprint back. Invest time in your students and your kids in places that you know they're going to be able to get better with their skill. If it's swimming, get better times. If it's baseball, understand the game. If it's basketball, understand the game. More so now than anything is understanding whatever sport you decide to play, understanding how that game works and how to be successful with the tools and skills that you have. That's what coaches are really looking for now more than anything. I hired a guy named Josh Schertz at Indiana State. Now he's at St. Louis. And while he liked guys who could run fast and jump high, his system allowed the guys that had an intuitive skill to understand how the game worked in basketball, And so that's what you really look for, and that's where you should probably invest your money and your time. Not so much in the showcase, so people can measure how your exit velocity is and how fast you run, but places where you can learn the game and understand how it works. That's what allows you to be able to participate and be attractive to coaches as you go forward in this new landscape?
So with that, starting the recruiting process, so you get an honest evaluation of where your son or daughter is in their sport. You figure out what you need to do to get better. You talk to the guidance counselors to figure out grade-wise where I can get into school and not, and is it possible for me to get in? Is it a school that is going to be lenient because you're an athlete? Okay, some schools are, some schools are not. And I think the earlier you find that out, it helps. I have a lot of people that come up when we were at Notre Dame, hey, my kid's unbelievable. He's a 2A student out of a 4, and I'm like, I don't care how unbelievable they're not getting into Notre Dame. And they're like, well, but football does. I'm like, well,
that's football.
Well, but big other sports, that's not happening. So as you go through the system, trying to find that A, B, and C school, okay, some of the B schools will turn into A, some of the A schools will be eliminated. And when I say this about Benet kids and families, what happens a lot of times in a good way is they get to their senior year. Some of the schools they can get into, because we have some great academic people in this room and in the school, they'll say, I want to go to Michigan, I want to go to Illinois, and what they're trying to figure out is if they're good enough to play at those schools. And there might be a couple of Division II, Division III schools they can't play at, but they have to figure out, do they want to play at the smaller school? And that's a big decision that a lot of athletes at Benet go through. And what they need to ask themselves, are they going to miss the sport? Are they going to miss the team? But can they deal with maybe being at a school that's a little bit bigger than high school? But the one thing that's different today, okay, I'm going to have you talk a little bit about the transfer portal, is that they might go to North Central College, they might go to Hope College, go there for 2 years, have an unbelievable experience, and have the opportunity to go in the transfer portal and maybe go to Illinois and play for a couple of years. And again, I can't believe I'm up here saying that, but this is kind of the system that we live in today, that it's all about trying to find the opportunity that you can play at. But finding the right school and the right fit is important. What I see in athletes, and I don't care what sport it is, if you don't enjoy the school, we don't know what's going to happen to you as an athlete. You might get hurt, you might get sick, you might have, school might be tough. If you really enjoy the school, I feel kids can get through a lot of things. If they don't enjoy the school, and they're on the bench, they get hurt, maybe they have a tough professor, usually it's a bad experience and they want to transfer. I think a lot of kids, if they like the school, can get through a lot of different things. So as you're looking at this, don't always look for the scholarship, try to find the right fit. And I understand everybody's a little bit different in trying to figure out financially what you need to do. But I've seen some kids that only go for a scholarship at the Division I, II level and have a miserable experience because they don't like the school. Or they had a great fit with some small schools, but the one opportunity at Division I they went to, they took. And they looked at the school, and the only reason they did it is so they can have signing day and say, I signed at a Division I school. So do some homework, making sure that they enjoy the school. Go online, so start the recruiting process. And they have this, all the kids with social media now, they can go online and look to see how many kids are from their area in the school. If you want to go to Texas and you're a lacrosse player, or you're a girls basketball player, how many athletes from our area are on that team? Okay, because sometimes coaches show you the niches of where they go. If it's a small school in Wisconsin, is it all Wisconsin kids? Or is it kids from Illinois also? There's a lot of different things. If you have a chance to go to a camp, okay, I think it's a good thing to go to a camp early for a couple of reasons. One, you can showcase in front of the athletes, or excuse me, the coaches, and get evaluated by coaches too at an early age. Sure, what's your take on going to high school camps versus showcases in all different sports?
Oh, geez. High school camps versus showcases.
Yes.
Okay. All I'll say is I'll keep it real short. You know, high school showcases are good. It kind of gets you a chance to be seen. It all depends on what the outcome's going to be. Mm-hmm. If you're trying to get exposure, initially it's a good thing because you want to get your name out there. But I think it can get overdone sometimes if you keep going and going over and over and over again. I said earlier that you want to be able to develop the skill and instincts to understand the game. So you just have to kind of know, which ones get the name out there, but then you want to go someplace to go to college that you maybe want to go to school. So if you're an athlete that you want to go to Michigan, but you don't have the ability to go to Michigan, don't go to that Michigan camp. Go to a camp where your ability allows you to play, so the coaches get a chance to really get a fair way to evaluate you. That's all I can tell you. Did I answer that okay?
You did. Now, another question is, how many people here have heard of the transfer portal in college? Exactly. Okay, so the transfer portal is fairly new, where there's a lot of kids going to schools, and whether they think they're better than the school they're at, or they're not happy with what's going on, they put themselves in the transfer portal, and it's a free agency now for schools. So, Mr. Gerard, if you don't mind talking about, especially like at Indiana State or UIC, or like in different sports, in basketball, how many kids at Division II, Division III schools are getting a chance to play Division I sports now?
So let me just start off by saying, I'm going to hold some parents accountable to this. A lot of times as parents, and I was a parent, we like to see our kids going to state school, they're going and show the hat on. But that's not always the best fit. Scott said earlier that sometimes you have to go to where your ability is at that time. The transfer portal, with all the Eagles, it gives your son or daughter a chance to go someplace where they can compete. And then if their level of skill increases because of size and getting bigger and stronger, then it gives them the ability to go someplace else to be able to be challenged. But it goes back to the fit. A lot of parents, because of the name, because of money, don't get me wrong, money is important, they'll go to another school where they're getting more, but they don't get better. And I think the key is that you want your son or daughter to develop, physically, emotionally, and every other way, just not financially. And so the portal is a really good thing. If you go to Division II school or III school, that is a good thing. You get a good education. And if your ability gets better, then you have the opportunity to go at a higher level to be able to compete. But that's the key word. I think sometimes a lot of parents and students say, well, I'm going from Indiana State to Illinois because I'm going to get the exposure, and I'm going to get X amount of dollars more. Well, that's a good thing, but how are they developing? Where are they going to be a year or two afterwards? Are they going to go back to where they were having success? Success is really hard to replicate. I've seen it over and over again. The kids leave to a place, they go someplace else. Unless you are a very talented person, sometimes it's better to stay where you are. Or if you're at a lower level, go someplace where that level allows you to be challenged and compete. Because in the end, you want your experience to be, I've gotten better, I've gotten stronger, I'm a better person, not just an athlete than I was before.
See, at the same time, so if you get the honest evaluation, and your coach that's giving you the honest evaluation says, I think you want to go to Division I, you should maybe go to a junior college, a 2-year school. And a lot of kids around this area, they didn't come to Benet Academy to go to junior college, okay? And we've seen some kids in some sports do that athletically. Now, the reason I bring that up, it's different today, okay? Because of the transfer portal, that experience is more important sometimes than being a talented, senior in high school. But, Gerard, if you could talk, and there's some rumors out there that there's been lawsuits that Vanderbilt quarterback this year who his years at junior college didn't count. Okay? And there's a couple people that had lawsuits and they said it did count. So I think there's a huge rumor out there right now, if you go to junior college, that those years won't count now to your 4 years in a 4-year school.
So right now, all that is case by case. So yes, you're correct. A quarterback from Vanderbilt petitioned to the NCAA and then filed a lawsuit. And the lawsuit basically said he still can't participate. But then there's a baseball player that did the same thing that got denied. So there's nothing out there right now that says that they can go to a junior college and play for 2 years and then play 4 years of college. So let's just get that out there now. So that's still getting figured out. But Scott's right in terms of the portal. As a Division I coach, they want players with experience who are getting paid now. So that means that a lot of you that are freshmen coming in, they're not going to recruit you because they're not going to help them right away. So it's going to allow you to get opportunities at other schools to play right away because the kids that have already played are going to go play for these other schools because they are experienced. And so what Scott is saying is that you have options. Go someplace that wants you and go there and get better and then see where it leads. But always keep in mind that success is hard to replicate. If you want to go to Illinois, but Illinois are big guys that are already playing, and you go to Illinois State and you're successful, that's a good thing. Think twice before you jump up to go to an Illinois or Purdue or a mid-major school, understanding that while financially you might be well compensated, but is it a fit? Can you still get the same experience and get better staying at a place like Illinois State as opposed to going to a place like, like Illinois? Conversely, you can be at a place like North Central and be exceptional, and you can make that jump to a Power 5 school and be very competitive. But that's why Scott goes back to, you have to have people around you that are objective, that tell you the truth. And I'm going to quote this, a lot of people will tell you what you want to hear and go for the money, but you may not be ready for all that stuff. So I think, you have an athletic director here that's going to be honest, and we have coaches here. Give an honest opinion on what your son or daughter's ability is before you make the jump to do the transfer thing when you have that opportunity. Because while initially you might be excited about the bump in the pay and the recognition, it may not be a good thing in the long run.
So a couple other things too, as we go through the making a plan A, plan B, and a plan C, there's training for the now and the future. Okay, you'll hear, hey, they get faster. You might be a point guard in basketball, but you're going to be a forward in college. Okay, and we've had a lot of kids that start training for college that's not even happened yet, and forget about where their feet are today. And the reason I say train for today and the future, always do the little things that maybe your trainer, your travel coach, or high school coach says to work on. But like Gerard had talked about, it's important to be good at your sport, having knowledge of what to do with your sport. So that's like training today. It's to be successful today. A lot of times when you go out to the field, or the court, or the pool, you can be like, wow, I don't care if it's Division 1, 2, or 3 athlete, you can tell somebody knows how to compete today. Because ultimately, you will get recruited on your athletic ability, but once you get to the school, you're going to play because you know how to compete and play the sport. And that's a big thing that people don't understand sometimes. When you go to the school, a lot of times, you might be 6'8" in basketball, or you're the fastest swimmer, and you know how to do this and that in lacrosse. But if you know how to compete, you know how to do your sport, that's going to get you on the field sooner when you get to that. So knowing how to train today and in the future. So that might be, I'm going to work out hard, but I need to gain weight. Okay, but I need to learn how to do my thing to make my high school successful, and my travel, my club successful. So don't always think about the future, think about where your feet are today. Go ahead.
Sorry, Scott. As you notice, we're talking about transfer portal and compensation, things like that. In this discussion, we're missing out one thing. It's one thing that my peers I talk about. What about getting a very good education? We've let the portal and compensation dictate sometimes where a kid goes. You have to remember, once you're done with the degree and all that money, you still got to go get a job to live for the next 70 years. And so that's why it's important to know the schools you're at. While you may not have a lot of money and compensation, notoriety, if you get a good degree from that school, that in the long run is going to pay dividends way more than what $1 million might give you. And that's the message that I think that a lot of parents are missing because they're going after the dollar, which I understand. But when you make that transfer, understand that they got to get a degree at some point in time, and what are they going to do with that degree? How are they going to use it going forward? And they may not even get it because you transfer here, you transfer there, all of a sudden you're like, well, wait a minute, I got a degree in this. What am I going to do with it? So I'm sorry, I had to say that. You got to consider that when we're talking about it.
Okay, a couple other things too. Who do you include in your process? Okay, I think when you create an A, B, and C, I think it's great to tell the high school coach, your travel coach, if you have a personal trainer in whatever sport you play, I think it's good to give everybody the knowledge of what schools you're looking at. Because the reason is you don't know who people know. You might, if you're going to a strength coach or a speed coach, that person might be friends with the Duke coach, or the North Central College coach, or the Iowa coach, and they're like, oh, you want to go to Iowa? Oh, I went there. A lot of times we don't know where people came from that we work with, so I think it's good to include everybody in the process. And the other thing is sometimes you might be really close with your high school coach, you might be closer to your travel or your club coach, you want to make sure that you include everybody too, including your guidance counselor, because you don't know when a college calls who they're going to talk to. So if we have girls soccer and you just tell your travel coach, but Gerard gets a phone call at school, oh, I didn't realize that she was interested in Wake Forest. It's good to keep everybody in the loop so everybody can speak on the greatness of your children on that. Again, going back to asking them questions about do they want to play, I think some great things to ask, because it might change every year that they get older, is, okay, talking about a large school, a small school, looking up some schools. Hey, do you want to go far away from home? Do you want to go to a school in the city? Would you want to go to a school in Iowa? Would you want to go to a school in Texas? Would you want to go to a school of 4,000? Do you realize that Wake Forest is only 6,000? Do you realize that some schools might be Division I, but it also could be a very small school? Do you want to go to a school where there's 60,000 people, or more than that in Texas and Texas A&M? And just going through those different things, I think is important. At a time, you're going to have to talk about finances. Do you need a scholarship? What's affordable? And maybe you're not going to talk to a freshman or sophomore at that time, but you might want to talk as they get older, so you can start kind of wiggle rooming whether their talent level, where it fits financially, and where they can get in grade-wise. Again, so they're not disappointed, they're pleasantly surprised. Plus, I think as college coaches will call, I think if they've already had this conversation, they can have better conversations with college coaches if they call or email. So with that too, and Short and I've had to deal with this many times when we're in college recruiters, what to do and how to reach out. Okay, I think it's okay to start contacting your A schools with short videos of them, and it does not need to be long, it needs to be about a minute long. College coaches get hundreds and hundreds of emails each day. Okay, I cannot sit up here, maybe you can, but I don't think you can either, to tell you what lacrosse needs to look like, what girls basketball needs to look like. But you can talk to your coach about what a short video looks like. You guys can do it with your iPhones, or your phones to do that. The other thing is when you're contacting a college coach, which is important, make sure you get the coach's name right. I've seen people that just blanket different names, and you might put the St. Louis U coach and send it to the Butler coach. Okay, so make sure you get the name right. But another thing that's important is make sure your son or daughter knows something about that school. Meaning academically, something maybe that's special about it, how the team's been doing, because that's going to get on the coach's radar. I really like to go to your school because your business school is in the top 15 in the Midwest. And you guys finished second. I can't wait to help you guys finish first next year. Here's a short film. Here are my grades. Here are the contacts if you need a reference. Doesn't need to be a 2-pager. It can be a very short. Now, here's the thing. You send a lot of these out, and a lot of times coaches may or might not get back. Okay, but it is getting filed. Okay, and a lot of times kids get discouraged because they don't get a lot of stuff back, or they get a camp letter back from that. But I'm telling you, what's important is not from a service, but it's important for it to come from the son or daughter. Okay? Yes, mom and dad, you can prove it. That is totally fine, but I think it's very important that it comes from the son or daughter, because when you're making a list of recruits, you can see genuine emails that you get. That you're like, wow, hey, this kid really knows what he's talking about. And if you go out and see the kid, and it's even with somebody that, a girls basketball player, a boys basketball player, you're like, okay, well, that's the one who sent me the email. That one I really want, but I don't know if they want to come here. I'm going to go after the kid that really wants to go to my school. A thing that is in the recruiting process, we all think that our kids, unless they're the top 1%, most kids think they're going to get recruited. They see it, hear it, what it's like, but really what most things is you need to go out to the schools and contact the schools to tell them that you, son or daughter, want to go there. Like I said, if your son or daughter is the top 1%, okay, that they're 7 foot, and they can do this and that, and they're the fastest swimmer, they're probably not going to need a lot of help. The only thing they're going to need help with is this. What coaches are good people and not, and is that a good school for me? But for the rest of the 99% of people, you need to go have your son or daughter sell themselves, and that's how schools will find them.
Yeah, I think one thing Scott I learned at Notre Dame, correct me if I'm wrong, is that when people go out their way to say, hey, I want to be at Notre Dame, I'm going to do what it takes to be there and show you that I can compete. To me, that immediately says there's something there. Not at Notre Dame, maybe someplace else. But like you said, so many times parents play coy with the kids, they're coming after me. No, you need to be proactive and let them know that I'm interested in playing for you, and I want to play for you. The successful players we had at Notre Dame were the kids that came to our camp that told us, you know what, I'm going to show you how good I am. And though the kids we kind of had to oversell, they kind of weren't as good. But the kids that said that I want to be at Notre Dame for the right reasons because I want to be here, they were the most successful.
I agree on that. The other thing with that is, if knowing the process, this happens as this gets frustrating. Now, with the transfer portal and schools wanting kids with more experience, they're not trying to go out and get commitments from kids that are younger as much as they did in the past. Okay, so that gives your kids a longer time to get better, to be ready when they can play as a freshman. Okay, so that's a good part of this. Okay, now with that said, is if your son or daughter is not reaching out to schools, sometimes they're good enough to play in college, but they're like lost because there's not schools calling them. Okay, and what happens is a lot of times is you might have, you think you're Division I, you want to go to Division I, no Division I schools are calling you, but you're like, why isn't any Division II or Division III schools calling me at least? So then it gets really frustrating. Okay, and what happens is a lot of small schools will wait, okay, because they know everybody wants to go to Division I. Okay, and a lot of times it takes your coach or yourself to reach out to some of the smaller schools, say, I would go there, and that's when the recruiting process starts at Division II and Division III schools. Now, I'm not saying some don't go out and reach out, but I see this over and over again with kids that are maybe borderline Division I, but they're like, why isn't anybody calling me? Well, again, Division II and Division III schools don't want to waste their time and be like, hey, I'd love to have you. Well, I'm waiting for Ball State. I'm waiting for Illinois. Because they hear that all the time. All the time. So, again, when you do A, B, and C, I think it's good to have Division I, Division II, and Division III schools on there too, that you can reach out to and tell those coaches, you know what, I'm not quite sure where I am right now, but you're a school I would consider if I want to stay close to home. Could be a Division II, could be a Division III, but I'm telling you, you guys need to reach out to coaches. Videos, social media, not overkill, okay? And just realize that these coaches get a lot of emails, a lot of social media, DMs, in different ways.
Official visits, so you can come by and see
Yeah.
that kind of thing.
Yeah. So know that it's more about you guys needing to look at schools and figure out where you want to go. Okay? And I think it's good, like on an official visit, you don't need to see the coach all the time. I think it's good if you have a tournament and you have a couple schools nearby to stop by, walk around a little bit, and have them see like what it's about. The other thing is that I think it's good if you have time, and I know we're all busy, okay? I think it's good, and we live in an area in Illinois that you can see a Division I, Division II, and Division III and junior colleges with different, go see some of them play, okay? And have your son or daughter watch them and be realistic. Do you think I can play as a freshman? Do you think I can play as a sophomore? Because a lot of times what kids don't see is how good is Benet across the street. How good is Lewis, which is a Division II school? How good is Northern Illinois? How good is Illinois? I think it's good to see all that, and then maybe go check out the campus and be like, oh, I didn't realize that this school is so pretty. And you can see and go online and do a lot of online visits now that you can do that. But again, go ahead, sorry.
One of the things that I got to have, I ran the Division II and III lacrosse and women's soccer, women's and men's soccer championship in NCAA. Division II and III championships are just as exciting, just as competitive as Division I. That's honestly God truth. Without all the hoopla. And kids have wonderful, wonderful, wonderful experiences. So, you know, before you say nay to those schools, like Scott said, just go by and visit, because at the end of the day, it's all about your participation and what you're going to get out of it over the long haul.
Okay, so I'm going to wrap up here. Okay, so I'm going to go for the next 20 or 30 minutes. So, because I know people have different sports, So we'll stay up here if anybody has questions. Now, again, if I was meeting with my son and daughter, okay, and I had one of my sons up there right now, so he's probably like, you haven't done this with me right now. So maybe we will soon. Okay, I don't know, he's giving me a bad look now. Is that you need to sit down and try to grade that A, B, and C. Let them dream, and when they dream, figure out what it takes to play at that dream school. And have them train and have fun trying to do that. And whatever kind of lands with them the next 3 or 4 years, academically, financially, or skill-wise, I hope they have a bunch of choices. And I know this at Benet Academy, they're going to have great choices, whether they go to school and become a student only, or get to be a student athlete. And I'll tell you what, it's a special thing to be a student athlete. I know Sharon and I talked about all the hard work, but it is because it's a group of people that you're going to know for the rest of your life, and they're going to be your friends, girls or guys, and it's a special thing if you can do it if you want to. But if you don't want to, I think it's okay, but I think it's better to tell mom and dad that you don't want to, but you could be still a stud athlete in high school and go on to that special school. I think the communication all the way through is important when they do that. And it's a great thing. Like I said, Sherrard is, as we go in the next month or two, we talk all the time. I will try to inform Sherrard if there's any new things out there between transfer portal, junior college, roster limits, different things with the colleges that I will try to get out to you guys in the meantime. But again, Sherrard and I will be up there if there's any questions for anybody. We'll stay up here, and thanks for your time.
Can I just add one last thing? So if you're not aware already, so our juniors second semester will meet with their college counselor to go through an individual college planning conference. So that's going to be another resource for you to be able to have to try to find best fit for you, not only academically, but also not only athletically, but also academically. And if you're a student right now, especially if you're a freshman or sophomore, if the vast majority of your grades are below 80, then you're probably going to want to have your student meet with their counselor to kind of talk about course selection to make sure that they're taking enough core courses that they can do well in to be able to meet that minimum 2.3 core course GPA. So if you have any questions about the academic side of it, please contact their counselor or you can contact me directly. I'd be more than happy to talk about that because obviously I didn't go into much detail about it.
Sherrard and I, in about 2 minutes, we'll go outside in that lounge area if anybody has any questions out there. So, but thank you for your time. And again, you can reach out to me for any questions. Sherrard, I'll be bothering you if anybody has questions for you too. So thank you for your time.